congregation was organized in 1889 by 14 Norwegian men, many of them immigrants direct from Hallingdal in Norway. Some had come on sailing ships, a difficult journey taking sometimes 5 or 6 weeks. Others had come by steamship. They had come to seek homesteads in the Walcott area. I'll mention a little bit about some of these men. The first president of the congregation was Engelbert Runes, and he was married to Olav Lena Bako, a daughter of Halvor Bako. One of his sons was Randolph Runes, that many of you remember as having had the cream station and ice cream parlor in Walcott for many years. He also had the telephone switchboard for the old party lines in his store. The first secretary was Peter Tui, also a Halling immigrant, and he continued as secretary for the next 43 years until 1932, always writing the minutes in Norwegian. And of course, for the first few decades, services were held in Norwegian, and the young people were confirmed in Norwegian too up until about the mid-1930s. Sometime in the 1930s, some of the services began to be held in English, I'm sure to the disappointment of many of the old-timers. But gradually English became the norm, although Norwegian services were still held at least once a month into the 40s and even into the 50s, with the last minister being able to preach entirely in Norwegian being Reverend E.T. Farron, who was totally fluent in Norwegian. Also, however, at the congregation's 100th anniversary in 1989, the Norwegian service was conducted by Reverend Percy Larson, who was a son of the congregation. At that time, 25 years ago, there were still quite a few old-timers who understood Norwegian. But now I think there's very few that do anymore here. Men kanskje det noen folk her I dag som kan snakke norsk, det sant? The first treasurer was Halvor Bako, also a Halling immigrant, as was his brother Nils Bako, who was also one of the founders. Both Halvor and Nils have descendants here today helping us celebrate the 125th anniversary. Scott, Kevin, and Sheila, who are singing for us today, are great-grandchildren of Halvor Bako. And Roger Varsdale, who directed the choir this morning, is a great-grandson of Nils Bako. And Pearl Frosaker, who is singing with the Sons of Norway choir, is a granddaughter of Halvor's. There are no doubt others here today who are descendants of these two pioneers. And no doubt that maybe some who are descendants of some of the other dozen men who were founders. Those founders are listed toward the back of your folder today, so you can look it up and see if maybe you're related to any of them. Halvor and Nils Bako, they had come by covered wagon in 1881 from southern Minnesota, where they first settled after coming from Norway. They had come by covered wagon to their new homesteads west of Walcott. They had walked behind their wagons all 300 miles, herding their cows along, while the women and children rode in the wagons. This is an example of the courage and determination these pioneers had. And with this same determination, they and the other founders, seeing the spiritual needs of their community, organized the first church here in Walcott. And so it's fitting today that the Sons of Norway choir, called the Kringenkor in Norwegian, they'll open our afternoon program singing mostly songs in Norwegian. And a special treat is having Reverend Roger Reinhardt, a retired pastor of Colfax, Richland. He'll sing the grand old Norwegian hymn, Den Store Kvite Flokk, which many of you remember as being sung at the funerals of our parents and grandparents. I can still hear Arnold Bako with his deep bass voice singing that grand Norwegian hymn at many funerals. And so now it's my pleasure to present the Kringen Corps, directed by Carrie Johansson. There's the goal.
While they're getting up here, I just need to tell you something. Min släppningar kommer från Hallingdal. I'm going to have relatives here. And my maiden name was Herbrandsen, and I've been told it means we're happy to be here. What a special day, 125th anniversary. And you're going to hear some very good singing. I really like this. Basin sing 2 verses in Norwegian, and then we're going to be singing 3 verses in English. So take and sing any of the children of the Heavenly Father in English that you know. And let's face it, we grew up with these songs. We know. We know. Okay, so sing right along, and you sound good. Okay.
Lord. on board.
The wonderful ending. We're all going to sing together in heaven. Even if you can't sing on earth, we're all going to sing together in heaven. Now, the last song that we'll be doing is about Osmeva. The words to this one are so precious to us because what it says is, let us live for one another. Let us live for one another. Every moment of night or day. Let us live for one another. We will have a better world that way. What a message. Okay.
Just a couple of thank yous. Arnold already covered most of it, but thanks to Arnold for opening up. It takes a lot of people to put this together. Special thanks to Steve and Keith Anderson and families for the new parking lot. And thank you to Thank you to Leanne Wigtail-Tuppen for putting this book together. I'd still be staring at the copy machine back then. As Arnold had said, in 1889, our founding fathers had their first meeting. And for myself to have a better insight into what that time was like. It was good to be able to speak to someone that lived back then. And thank you, Gerda Jordan. Arnold spoke of the Founding Fathers, and today we are blessed to have descendants of one of the Founding Fathers, the Bacco kids.
You're all wondering what's coming.
We're hoping nothing happens this time. By the way, we are descendants of Albert Bacco, and our dad was Ardell Bacco. Probably most of you already know.
We're not kids anymore, though. Our kids have kids now.
Since you talked to your Lord and told him your heart in secret, how long since you prayed, how long since you stayed on your knees a whole night through.
How long has it been since your mind felt at ease? How long since your heart knew no burden?
Can you call him your friend? How long has it been since you knew that he cared for you? How long since you knew that he'd answer you and would keep you the whole night through? How long has it been since you were by his bed and prayed the long night through? Yeah, bring my cell phone.
Now if we could call on the daughter of Pastor E.T. Fearon, Cheryl Fearon.
Good afternoon. As I was preparing for talking with you and sharing some memories with you, I spent some time reviewing some of Paul's epistles and saw how often he thanked the believers for the memories he had of working with them. And I have to say, I thank God for all my remembrances of you, for your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. When Arnold talked about the early Hollands coming to this community, I know that when we arrived in the late 1940s, we were welcomed in part perhaps because my dad was home. And some of the people who settled this area, particularly perhaps more the Gold Church area, some of them had made a stop first in southeastern Minnesota, and where the Gold Church that they founded there will be celebrating its 150th anniversary in a month, and I'm very involved with that because my great-grandmother was one of the founding members. Mother and Dad were blessed to minister to you for 11 years, and I am forever grateful for the memories you have shared with me during my many visits back to Walcott, that for me is hometown. Memories that share the significance of their ministry with you. Just today, one of the Fatlin brothers reminded me of the day that Dad baptized 4 Fatlin babies. That was a very memorable time in his memory and in the memory of this church. Now, you hear me talking about Mother and Dad's ministry because I truly believe that Mother and Dad ministered as a team. You may not know that Mother had always wished to be a minister, but they didn't allow that. And I found out in her later years that that was the case. So she figured that if she couldn't be a minister, she'd marry a minister, and that didn't happen. Also, there were 3 areas of their ministry that very much reflected their background and their interests. Several of you have mentioned today the music from that time, and when I looked at the choir that I was privileged to be part of earlier today, I thought, boy, most of those people were in Mother's chair choir or junior choir at some point. I remember I think you might know that both Mother and Dad had a great deal of interest in music. My dad was actually a high school band and orchestra director before he went to seminary. Mother had conducted choral union, prepared choirs for choral union participation with F. Malleus Christensen before her marriage. So music was in their genes, and it was something that they really appreciated sharing. And you all were a wonderful, fruitful vineyard for bringing that music to fruit. Mother would talk particularly about the joy of having the Golan Walcott choirs together because Walcott had particularly phenomenal men in the men's section, some of whom are the forebears of people who are singing today. And Goal particularly had some phenomenal women singers. I have at some place in my house, I have recordings that were made of the choirs at that time, which are really special. As you probably know, you probably felt a sense today when you came to worship that the church was filled. That was kind of the way things were almost every Sunday when we were growing up. And you didn't really have to take attendance because you knew everybody was here. What you did is you counted who wasn't here. You would know, and then you would think, well, they might need a visit because we ill or maybe something isn't going well. But the basic assumption was everybody was in church on Sunday. Okay, the second area that I feel that my parents really spent a lot of effort on was youth work. They really cared about helping young people grow up in the faith. They worked very hard to make Luther League something that the young people and their families enjoyed being part of, and Mother in particular worked with the LDR. I think of, particularly think of the New Year's Eve parties that we had, and they weren't kind of the New Year's Eve parties that maybe you have now. But they were, a mother would plan games and there'd be entertainment, and then we would come up and have a vigil around the stroke of midnight with the bell tolling as we sang, "Oh God, our help in ages past." The final area that I would like to talk about would be education. My parents both were teachers before they came here. And I think I may have mentioned this at the Walcott school reunion, all-school reunion, but you might not, all of you might not know that Dad was actually offered a teaching position in the Walcott schools some years before he went into the ministry. He turned it down because he couldn't teach Latin. However, I found this in papers, so I thought it was really interesting that it came full circle and came back. Some of you perhaps were in Mother and Dad's, or in Mother's adult Bible study classes. I think a few of you might have been in those Bible study classes. A number of you were in my father's confirmation classes, as was I. And I've heard tales of terror about catechizations, but I think that we all have grown into our mature years remembering some of the key points from Luther's catechism that have stayed with us and nurtured our faith over the years. Now I want to share with you something special that I've been able to do to honor the ministry of my parents. 4 years ago, I established a scholarship at Luther Seminary in memory of Mother and Dad's ministry, wrote a description of that ministry that all recipients will be getting, so they will know who these people were and what their ministry meant. And now, what I want to say, finally, is he who has begun a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Jesus Christ. Thank you for inviting me. Blessings to you all for the future.
Serving Walcott from 1959 to 1964, Pastor Ray Lester. You don't really understand what a burden it's been on my life in the ministry that I'm known as the pastor who killed the Norwegian services in Walcott and Gold. A member of the call committee did say to me, "Kan du snakke norsk?" And I said, "Lite grann." And I guess they thought I could do something, but it's hard to make a sermon out of "Kan du snakke norsk" and "Lite grann." You can tell you're getting old when the barber spends more time on your ears, nose, and eyebrows than he does on the top of your head. Where is Lily Wood to it? Is she here? Well, you can also tell you're getting old when you call Walcott about their 125th anniversary, and this Lillian answers the phone. Is that you? Yeah. Is Leanne? Would you stand up so I can? Great.
I said, "Are you Palmer Wigtill's daughter?" And she said, "Yes." And when I came here, Evelyn, your mom, right? She was pregnant with you, and you were born in '60, and was one of the first children I baptized here. And of course, where that memory goes, Palmer and Evelyn, what wonderful people they were. It was really fun to talk to you on the phone. But that's kind of weird, you're talking, are you a grandmother? Yeah. And then when have been to the 75th anniversary, the 100th anniversry, the 125th anniversary, you got to get some signals. Well, when I came back here, driving down to Walcott, not taking the 46 route, but the new route right into Walcott, the first thing I did was drive around town. And driving around town, I had 4 special places I wanted to look at. The first place was the baseball field on the edge of town. And they've done a funny thing with home plate, but I see it's still a baseball field. But that was a place where I had great fun. And a part of that great fun was playing ball with a group of guys that were good athletes, great people, and just having a great time. That was a real important part of my life here. And also at that field, coaching with Orland and Roman Rizak, I remember the Walcott Wolves, the kids that played baseball. That was just a great experience. The next place I wanted to go was the parsonage, because I heard they took away the barn. And that barn was really important to me because I got to have horses, for crying out loud. I don't know many parsonages where you had a barn and 30 acres of pasture behind it. And so this was my opportunity to buy a horse, and I went out with that horse expert, Oscar Rochstead, to buy a horse, because Oscar knew horses, whatever. And I remember standing here looking at the guy who's selling the horse, and Oscar was behind the guy who was selling the horse, and the guy says, I said, "Well, how much is this horse?" He says, $225. And Oscar's right behind that guy, and he goes, offer him $200. Well, 25 didn't mean that much to me at that time, so I said, "I'll take the horse." And that was another incredible experience for me, because I got to go with these ranchers to take their cattle out to pasture and bring the cattle back from pasture. Man, I thought I died and went to heaven doing that stuff, And then we'd go for trail rides. We'd have up to 14 people from Gold and Walcott going on trail rides. And my wife had a horse called Ginger, and her horse Ginger had a colt. We called the colt Snap. And she watched that colt being born. So that was another place. And then the third place I had to go was the gym, the Walcott gym. I realize that's been replaced or remodeled or something, but that was a great place. First basketball team, Walcott and Kinder. Oh boy, this is what's next. All right, here we go. So I don't know how many people are going to be there, what's going to happen, and they got these seats along the wall, and the seats are right next to the playing surface, and here this Walcott and Kinder game is going on and getting down to the end, and Walcott, I think, has a 1-point lead, and Coach Logan of Kindred is hollering to his team, "Foul the sixth grader! Foul the sixth grader!" That was Dennis Blocker. Here's this little blue-eyed blonde sixth grader walking up to the free throw line going, "Oh, oh." And Walcott wins the game. My apologies to any gold people that are here. But then it was also fun to play amateur basketball here with the same bunch of guys.
Orland, Jordan, Great Orland, Arnie, and Balmy and Rizak and so on. I can't remember if Omer played, because I think he was doing some checking on his legs because he had slowed down so much. And then Arnie, Jordan, and I, we'd go down and play basketball with the high school team because they didn't have enough guys. And that was great fun. Although the guys that we played didn't, there'd be a little bit of a funny look when we come in to play, but Coach Krasher said the main thing is to just keep Roger Jordan in his place. So. And then the last place, of course, was to come to the church. Now, the church was a place where you met the people. You met the people in all the facets of their lives. You met them in times of death, times of birth, times of confirmation, times of weddings. And there's a passage in Romans that goes, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. And don't let your lives be conformed to this world, but let God transform your lives from within, so that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And the word for transform in that passage is metamorphosa in Greek, from which we get the word metamorphosis. So the metamorphosis, for the butterfly is the egg, the larva, the caterpillar, the butterfly. And that's what happens in people's lives. Their lives get transformed. And there's a saying that I heard that was very powerful to me. It is, a trauma not transformed gets transmitted. Now, everybody has trauma in them. And the task is to transform that trauma so that you don't transmit that trauma to people. And of course, the classic example of this is the death of Christ. Here he's forsaken by friends, he's betrayed, he's humiliated, physical violence, ridicule, the crown of thorns, carried a cross, nailed to a cross, and hung up with the mockery of the King of the Jews. And what does he do with that situation? His first words are, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And then he says to one of the thieves that he's crucified with, today you're with me in paradise. He looks down and sees his mother and one of his disciples, and he says, now, this is your mother, this is your son. He's taking care of his mother. He experiences the utter forsakenness of God. Why have you forsaken me? He cries out in thirst, and then he says, as he transforms this experience, it's finished. And Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And out of the transformation of that event has come healing and blessing for centuries. Now, the thing I really want to say to you people is that you played a part in the transformation of my life and my family. My wife and I came to Walcott. We never lived in a town of 200 people. We never lived on a farm. Right out of the seminary, what do I do all week? What is ministry? My wife was 8 months pregnant, and what is this experience going to be like? we came here and we borrowed $600, bought $600 worth of furniture from a furniture company in Minneapolis. If we paid it off in a year, we had to pay no interest. Had $500 borrowed for investments and books, and $50 a month payment on a car. We have no refrigerator, we have no washing machine, we have no desk, we have no typewriter, and we're not quite sure how all this is going to fit together. So here comes Walcott and Gold. They're having what? Welcome to the preacher. $700 from Walcott, $700 from Gold. All of a sudden there's money for a used Kenmore washing machine, refrigerator, desk, typewriter, etc. This is all, whoa, what is this? You're welcome. And then about 6 months after we were here, we had a lot of people who were sick and funerals and so on, and the council comes to me and says, we want to give you a $600 raise because you're spending time going to Fargo and Breckenridge to the hospitals, and we think you need to increase your mileage. We're going down to Woodtill's store, and we're looking there buying groceries at, not Woodtill's, Rezak's store, and we're looking around, and here's these little notes here. So-and-so, $5, so-and-so, $10. What in the world are these things in the grocery store? Well, these people were giving money to us to help us on a vacation. And then I'm in Woodtill's implement store one time, and I see a saddle hanging in there, and I said, boy, what's that saddle doing in an implement store? And Palmer said, well, that's your saddle. You bought me a saddle from the place. And when my wife, when the baby came due in August, they had a baby shower that just was boom. There was anything that baby needed that it didn't get. And all of this was spontaneous care by these absolutely wonderful, wonderful people. You know? And so we come into this place with our kind of trauma, nothing too significant. But we met a bunch of people who took our trauma and transformed it. And let us know what it was like to minister to some great people. In closing, I share a story with you. When I worked at the prison in Shelton, Washington, we had a special program we were going to do for the inmates. And a part of this program was what they called a blanket thing. And you know, in most prisons, when they have a blanket party, they take a blanket and throw it over the guy and beat him up. You know, that's a blanket party. But in this thing, we had the inmates, we had about 36 or so inmates and some people from the street participating in this. And we divided people up into three, and then we had each group of three with a blanket. And we said, okay, now, one guy hold one end of the blanket, one guy hold the other end of the blanket, and the third guy say to those two guys, you know, I need you, and I need you to care for me, and I need you to love me. And then that guy would get into the blanket, and those other two inmates would rock the blanket. Symbol of care. And then the inmate in the blanket would get up and change places until each one had a turn in the blanket. And then this is just about over, and one of the inmates said, hey, chaplain, who want to put you in the rock you in the blanket? So I said, okay, and I got down there, and one inmate held each end of the blanket, and I said, I need your support, I need your love and your care, and I got in the blanket. And they started rocking me in the blanket. And all of a sudden, these other guys come up, and they pick me up, and hold me over their heads, and start passing me around the room. And they're saying, we love you, chaplain. Okay? Now, this, to me, is a symbol of what happened to my family and I in Walcott and Gold. Walcott has one end of the blanket, Gold has the other. And we come here and say to these congregations, you know, we need your love and support. We're not quite sure what we're doing here or what. And you people blocked that blanket. You picked it up. And you passed my family around the room. And I will never forget the love and care of the people for my family in this parish. The best parish I ever served. You might think that's not saying a lot because I served in prison, I want you to know that as you were communicating to my family, that you loved us in such beautiful ways, that we were communicating to you that we loved you and the privilege of serving. One last thing. I'd like to have all the young people that I confirm stand up. All right. Take this as a public apology. I was only trying to put the fear of God in you. But I've been bombarded with horror stories and Bible verses and threat and so on. And so, let's see, how would I get out of this one? The Lord works in mysterious ways, and He works with mysterious people. So, my wife greets you. My wife came here. I came here loving sports and met the best sports guys I ever had in my life. My wife came here loving music, and she loved the music in the church. She was not here because she's having memory problems, but she's here in the spirit, and she remembers the kindness. And Irene Erickson out there with her single mother, as she was chasing around 3 kids while I was chasing around people. Bless you, my friend.
Thank you, Pastor Lester, for making the trip out here. I had heard stories about you my whole life. It's good to put a face to all those stories. They were all good. And speaking of sportsmen, now we go back to the Bacco family here. At one time in my life, I shared an apartment with Kevin Bacco. I wish I had the time to tell you the story.
I told all my troubles goodbye.
goodbye to each day and a sigh. The world that I roam cannot be my home. I'm bound for the land in the sky. I walk and I talk with my Lord.
I feast every day on His word.
Heaven is near and I can't stay here. Goodbye, world, goodbye.
Better to
Leave for me when I'm gone, 'cause I won't have to leave you alone. And when I hear the last trumpet sound, my feet won't stay on the ground. Gonna ride with the shout, gonna fly, gonna ride with my Lord through the sky. Heaven is near and I can't stay here. Goodbye, world, goodbye. I won't have the blues anymore, and I'll never cross to the shore, and I'll never find that I'll leave behind my heartaches and tears evermore. A day, maybe two, then goodbye.
tomorrow I'll rise up and fly.
Heaven is near and I can't stay here. Goodbye, world, goodbye.
Better to
Weep for me when I'm gone, 'cause I won't have to leave you alone. And when I hear that last trumpet sound,